a fan of online self-assessments? You know, the ones that will ask you questions such as, how compatible are you and your crush? Or things like, what Hogwarts school do you go to? You know, things like that. I've done a ton of these. I'm sure many of you have done a ton of these for just random things. They get posted on social media all the time. I'd like to talk about a specific self-assessment that has actually had a big impact for me. Something that's actually changed my perspective on myself and about people, how I look at people fairly dramatically. This self-assessment is called understandmyself.com. So the self-assessment was created by three accomplished clinical and research psychologists, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, Dr. Daniel Higgins, and Dr. Robert Peel. These three psychologists developed their site to help the psychological and physical health of people in general. They just wanted a way to reach more people, and they thought if people could have some insight into their personality, they would have a better chance of working on themselves. The test consists of 100 questions or phrases, and these questions or phrases are things like, I appreciate beauty, I like to solve complex problems, I like to take charge, things like that. And you essentially choose a scale as to how much you agree or disagree that relates to you. The responses are then compared to 10,000 other people, and this is to assess your personality on what's called the Big Five Aspect Scale. So one of these aspects is extroversion, and extroversion has two main traits that they measure with it, which are enthusiasm, which is spontaneous joy and engagement, and assertiveness, which is social dominance, often verbal in nature. Another aspect is neuroticism, which is defined by the traits withdrawal, the tendency to avoid in the face of uncertainty, and volatility, the tendency to become irritable and upset when things go wrong. Another aspect is agreeableness, and its traits are compassion, the tendency to empathically experience the emotions of others, and politeness, the proclivity to abide by interpersonal rules. Another aspect is conscientiousness, which has the traits industriousness and orderliness. Industriousness is the ability to engage in sustained goal-directed effort, and orderliness, the tendency to schedule, organize, and systematize. And the last aspect is openness to experience, which is defined by the traits openness, which is creativity and aesthetic sensitivity, and intellect, which is an interest in abstract ideas and concepts. The really interesting about these is that some of them seem to be pretty heavily rooted in how you're born, not something you determine at all, and something that you can't train. For instance, if you had somebody with a certain trait that's not trainable, and you try to train them, it doesn't work. Whereas there are some of these traits that actually seem to be things you can do something about, and it's interesting that there's that dichotomy to them. So that's basically it for the self-assessment and the Big Five Aspect Scale, at least from what I can present to it. I'm not an expert on it. This is actual psychological territory in terms of the actual expert field, and so I can only give you what I've researched and learned about it. I've done a lot of reading and research and watching videos and just trying to learn about it. If you want to know more about the Big Five Aspect Scale, you can go onto Dr. Peterson's YouTube and look at his lectures from his psychology classes. They go heavily into these topics and where they come from, how they derive them statistically, and what they mean. Now, as far as my self-assessment, I've already done it. I've read it thoroughly. I've gone through it multiple times. It's very interesting, and I think it's spot on. It's pretty good. It's about right. And it's been very insightful and helpful to help me understand myself and also how to look at others and see those traits in others and respect something about people that we don't always know the reason why we're making some of the decisions we're making. We have certain behaviors that are guided by parts of ourselves that we don't really have control over, and that's interesting. As far as my traits, I'm going to talk about those in a separate video because the report you get from the site is so detailed it's going to require another video to go through. In fact, I have it right here. I printed it just so I could look at it with you guys. It's big. It's not little. This is about 16 pages. Granted, the font's a little large, but it wouldn't go down too significantly if I reduced it. It's quite detailed. Paragraphs. It's essentially a large research on me. And that's one of the things that drew me to this assessment, was that It was created by actual psychologists with actual data and actual data in mind, and essentially to me it was the equivalent of getting this assessment from psychologists. It's the best thing I could get for the money. Now, the only compromise you'll make with this system is that it does cost money. The standard price for it is about $10 to take the assessment. However, you can get a discount on the assessment if you watch any of the various podcasts that Dr. Peterson has been on. For instance, the Joe Rogan podcast, he's been on there several times. The Jocko Willink podcast called the Jocko podcast. He'll give out a code to get a discount, and they probably still work. So go ahead, look up those podcasts, check out his work, and then check out whether you think this is worth it for you. And if you're not sure, that's fine. By the way, I'm not sponsored by these guys in any way. I really believe in the procedure they've done. It's really good science by comparison. How social science is supposed to be done, data-driven, and that's really important. It's made a real big difference for me, and I wouldn't be so passionate about it if I thought it wasn't worth it, if it wasn't something special. If you're not interested in getting it yet, don't feel like you have to. Don't feel like you have to at all. You feel free to tune into the next video. I will go through my assessment, and maybe after you see mine, you'll be able to make a better decision. I love you guys. Thank you for the great outpouring of love. I've received a ton of responses and people just letting me know that they're there and they appreciate what I've been doing with videos, and it's been really nice since I haven't felt good. I've been fairly ill the past 5 weeks with allergies and asthma. It's been very bad, but I'm doing a lot better, and all the support that people have been giving me about it has been really great. So thank you so much, everyone. I love you. Take care.